Hi again, everyone. Moving straight along with video number 31 in the Richard Laymon horror novel review series. And we come to one of the big ones, Night in the Lonesome October, from the year of Laymon's death, 2001. So let me get straight on with it. The cover art is really good, but my usual gripe about these later Layman editions, you can't really see the detail of the cover art because they've squashed the image up so narrowly, and his name is absolutely massive. But trust me when I say that it is a really good one. It's very evocative and very relevant to the type of story that this is. This has been in the sun a while. That's the spine. And it comes in at 400 and... how many was it? 469 pages. Right, here's the back, which says, Ed Logan can't wait for his second year at Wilmington University. It's been a long summer without Holly, the girl he gave his heart and soul to last year. In turn, she fell in love with him, at least that's what she said. In September, Ed returns to campus, Holly doesn't. On the 1st of October, Ed receives a letter. Dear Ed, it begins, I will always cherish the times we had. Holly has fallen in love with someone else and won't be coming back. Heartbroken, half mad with despair, Ed can't study, can't sleep, so he leaves his apartment and takes a walk. It's a scary night in the lonesome October, and Ed is not alone. There are others out there, roaming the streets, lurking under bridges, seeking prey. Then he sees the mystery girl. Yep, so, Night in the Lonesome October. This is one of only 6 novels from 35 where Laymon would use the first-person narrative, and it's the second book of his to be named after an Edgar Allan Poe quote, after Out Are the Lights. Right, some background then. So this book, along with the Traveling Vampire Show, these are the ones which, if anyone talks about Laymon these days, it tends to be this book. I was reading an interview recently where Laymon had said, an interview was from the late 90s, and he was asked which book of his he was most proud of, and he said Savage, which is the correct answer in my opinion. He should be most proud of that one. And he had said that he hoped that would be the book he's remembered for. As it turns out, almost exactly 20 years after his death, next Valentine's Day will be 20 years since his death. As it turns out, that's not what happened. Barely anyone ever mentions Savage anymore. If Laymon is talked about, it's because of this book and the Traveling Vampire Show. And it's easy to see why that is. It's very easy to see why this is a very popular book, but I'm going to try to explain in this review why, as a absolutely die-hard Richard Laymon fan, this book actually doesn't do it so much for me as it does for a lot of other fans, even if I do value that Laymon was apparently looking to take his writing in a slightly different direction. I say that considering also Traveling Vampire Show, which was written just before this one. It was it seems that Laymon was going to leave behind the splatterpunk of his early career, and he was going to go into a more of a kind of less schlocky direction. He was going to focus more on characters and more on nostalgia, because Traveling Vampire Show, like this one, is a very nostalgic book, and I get the sense that Laymon, as he got older, was starting to pine for his youth and the memories of his youth. So yeah, anyway, I think Laymon had a bit of a Peter Pan side to him, and this shows it. He was very prone to nostalgia. He often has his characters fantasizing about scenarios that are simultaneously very innocent, coming across a beautiful girl by chance, for example, as happens in this book, but they're also charged with like teenage sex fantasies and stuff like that. Some of his books can be read as kind of adolescent fairy tales, and they're enjoyable if you read them as that. And I think that Night in the Lonesome October, that's how I would categorize this. It is a kind of adolescent fairy tale. It's a very good one, by the way. Don't that's not I'm not putting it down when I say that. Right, let me start then with the do I even need to talk about the plot? Because the plot is beside the point of a book like this. It's not relevant. Ed does a bit of a Forrest Gump. He's miserable, he's down in the dumps, so he just decides to up and get moving, which is what you should do when you're in that scenario. Get moving and keep moving until you look behind you and realize that whatever was bugging you is far behind you by now. That's what Ed does. But in the course of going out and walking the night streets, he comes across this mysterious, alluring young woman. She turns out to be 16, I think, or 18, I don't remember. But anyway, so he starts to like follow her and gets into some adventures as they go along. There's no need to talk about the plot beyond that. Instead, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to divide this into what I liked and didn't like. So let's start with the good. The good is it is extremely readable, even though there is no real plot to speak of. It's another page turner, as Laymon almost always delivers. Another thing I love is the character of Casey. She is one of the great Richard Laymon characters. All of Laymon's truly great characters are female. I noticed this. And she joins the ranks of strong female characters. I was thinking about this after I finished this late last night. If I were to make a top 20 Laymon characters list, I'm pretty sure about 18 of them would be female. Only the guy from Savage and Larry from The Stake would maybe have a chance at making the list. Casey, she's right up there with the best of the Laymon characters. She's up there with Robin from Funland, with Jessie from Savage, Jane from In the Dark, Angela from Darkness Tellers, and of course Sandy from the Beast House series, maybe my favorite character. As with Body Rise, the nature of talking a little bit about the plot here, the nature of this story allows Laymon to slip in these kind of short story and vignette ideas that he does very, very well. For example, I'm guessing if you're watching this review, you've read this book. Almost every Laymon fan has read this. There's a small incident in a house with all the clown paraphernalia. Brilliant. Has no relation at all to the plot. Doesn't add anything at all to moving the narrative forward, but it's just so weird and wonderfully creepy. The old guy on the porch who strikes his match, again, just no reason at all for it to be there, but it is there because that's what Laymon is trying to show here. He's trying to show the random weirdness that exists in any small town at night when all the crazies come out and all the bizarre stuff is ironically visible. It's pitch black, but that's when you see it all. So that was really good. I also like very much, I've kind of alluded to this already, but this book has a very basically good message about broken hearts, which is just to get moving and keep moving. I am fairly sure, I'm not spoiling anything here. The first line of this novel is a really good one. It's, I was 20 years old and heartbroken the night it started. That's the first line. The last line is, as for Holly, who dumped me for the summer camp counselor, fuck her. I really like that. I have a fairly strong idea that Richard Laymon knew the last line of his novel at the same time he knew the first line of it. And everything in between was what he had left to figure out. But I think that's the cycle, that's the arc that he wanted to do there. He wanted to go from heartbreak to recovery. And he does it very well. What else can I say? Well, there's real no horror in this book. It calls itself a horror novel on the back here, but there's only really one horrific section. It's some cannibals that are under a bridge, and that was well done. But this is a book that's only barely horror, like The Traveling Vampire Show, the same there. I mean, The Traveling Vampire Show was 350 pages of coming-of-age drama, and then just some horror stuff tagged on at the end. And that's not a bad thing at all. It's really good. We've got something like 33 other Richard Laymon splatterpunk horror novels if we want that. It's really nice when a writer tries something different. So I credit Laymon with doing that. Let me turn now a little bit to the bad. And that is, inevitably, I suppose, I was always going to complain about this. It's the number one reason why I don't love this book so much. It's the character of Ed, who is our narrator. If we're going to spend 469 pages in someone's company, inside someone's headspace, perceiving the world as he perceives it, it's kind of important that he's likable. And this guy, again, like all Laymon's honey young men, he just isn't likable. He's just kind of mopey and stalky as well. I mean, you can dress this up all you like with heartbreak, but the legal profession do still term what Ed is doing here as stalking, and the non-legal profession term it creepy as hell. Laymon acknowledges this, it seems, on page 71, where Ed he has a moment of self-perception here, because he says, even while I sat there thinking such things, part of me was appraising Ed Logan, finding him to be melodramatic and bitter and childish. Yeah, that's you, Ed. That's you. Well done. Nice bit of self-awareness there. As with pretty much every other young male Richard Laymon lead, think Bodhi from Alarums, which I just spoke about, Neil from Body Rides, Howard from Darkness Tellers, and all the other guys with arrested emotional development. The question is, why are all these stunning women instantly falling in love with such unlikable people? There is nothing at all in Ed's character to suggest why two women, one of whom is apparently a statuesque beauty and the other is completely as a free spirit, why are they falling for him, who is basically, like I said, a creepy person? There's a scene where he's lying in bed with Casey, and he's feeling her up while she sleeps. He's contemplating violating her even more than he already has. He overcomes that titanic ethical struggle and decides not to feel up this girl who's given him her trust. But are we supposed to see him as a good guy now because of that? He's decided not to slip his hand into her pants, into her knickers, and sexually violate her. Does that make him a hero? I just think that makes him like not a basic psycho. Um, like I said, you dress it up with heartbreak all you like, but this is still very, very unnerving. What this guy is doing and how he thinks about things, how he perceives women. The other thing I didn't like is the contrived ending with the usual shoehorned and frankly unbelievable sexual assaults. Can we not have one ending for a strong female lead that doesn't end with her being in some way sexually assaulted, as happens with Casey here? I really would have liked just for once, well, I tell a lie because Jesse from Savage did actually escape without being violated at any point in that book, so that's why I absolutely love it. But I did think it was a bit cheap because Laymon has dressed up Casey to be this very alluring, mysterious, attractive, fun, likable person. Why did you have to then go ahead and have her being raped at the end? Spoiler, but like I said, you probably read the book. Didn't like it. Like I said, the ludicrous ending, it reminded me of the very, very ending, actually, where Ed has now got three women who are all obsessed with him. And it again reminded me of Buddy Rides. It's the same thing happened there, where Neil, one of the most repugnant characters in all of Richard Laymon, somehow gets all these women to have an arrangement with him where they're all sharing him. Basically, the same thing happens here. And I asked myself, what is likable in Ed's character that he now, within the space of days, of all these women have met him in the space of days, basically, except for one of them. How has he not got just two but three beautiful women sharing him? My answer is, to be fair to the book, it adds to the fairy tale aspect of the story. It adds to the surreal aspect of the story. On those terms, like I said at the beginning of this, if you read this book as an adolescent fairy tale, then it is the perfect ending, minus the sexual assault. But the happy ending with everyone kind of finding an arrangement where they can all share each other, I guess if you ignore all realism, it's a good and a nice ending. What else can I say? Oh yeah, there's a character in this called Rudy Kirkus, who is like a walking gay stereotype. Um, there's a very, I said before that this is a very readable book, and it is, but there is actually a very tedious 60-page section where they're having a dinner party, and Ed is constantly fighting off Kirkus's sexual advances. Didn't like that. You know, it's my question to Richard Laymon, is this really how you want to set up the hero of the day who redeems himself at the end? Because that is what happens. Rudy turns out to save the day. But up to that point, he's incredibly obnoxious and rapey, and he's basically like the gay version of Ed in that he is just a very creepy person. There is a fantastic detail with Rudy involving a tattoo on his throat and the story behind that. Thought that was really well done, very odd. But other than that, I didn't quite get why Laymon was doing this. In the year 2001, I would have expected a less cliched and stereotypical and quite honestly offensive depiction of a gay character. So yeah, I wasn't keen on him either. Now then, I really don't want to end this on such a negative note because like I said, I've consciously tried to be a bit negative because most people really love this. It tends to be people's number one Laymon book, and that's absolutely understandable. I get that. I just wanted to try to lay out my argument for why I don't love it so much. I think that when you go against the grain a little bit, when you have an opinion which isn't the norm, a person should maybe just try to explain why that is, and I hope that I've managed to do that. I think that one of the main reasons that I don't perhaps love this book so much as other people is that I have just spent the entire summer reading 30 other of his books, and I've still got like 5 of them to go. So there's nothing really new here for me other than the premise of a guy just going for a walk and nothing really happening, but it's all very eerie and creepy. In terms of characterization, I've read it all before. In terms of the love story, I've read it all before. So it doesn't really do it for me on that level. But yeah, what it does have going for it is mood, atmosphere, a very an overwhelming sense of nostalgia pervades this book, and it's a very good read. That's all I want to say. I think it might be the last book Laymon completed before his death. It's difficult to pin down what his truly last novel was. A bunch came after his death, published posthumously, but I think that this is the last of his novels which we can definitely say he wrote every line of. So it's a very, very good one for him to have gone out with. So that's going to be my review of Night in the Lonesome October. An excellent achievement, very unique really in his, even though I just said there's nothing new for me. What do I mean when I say it's unique? I mean that it's not his usual splatterpunk fare. So, all right, I'm rambling now. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you very much for watching it if you did watch it, and I'll be back soon with another review. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Take care and bye for now.